Thank you for tuning in to the Chief Endurance Officer podcast. To hear more inspiring stories and strategies around the endurance mindset, be sure to subscribe below or visit us at chiefenduranceofficer.com. Until next time, keep pushing those limits. Well, welcome to the show. I am super excited for our guest today. He is an accomplished endurance athlete dedicated to helping athletes achieve their goals. With over 40 years of competitive experience, he has earned 15 All-American titles, completed multiple Ironman triathlons, represented Team USA in international competitions. He's also an impressive speaker who shares his lessons of perseverance and spiritual endurance, as well as an author of Launching the Great Go Mission and See You at the Finish. Please welcome coach, speaker, and author Lincoln Murdoch. Welcome, Lincoln.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate you having me on.
It's great having you on. And as you know, we love talking about the endurance and the endurance mindset. So, Lincoln, how has your endurance mindset impacted your life unexpectedly?
Well, I'm 68, and so I have a lot of years to look back on. And when I talk to high school, college, young adults, one thing I tell them is that life's going to be a whole lot harder than you think it's going to be. You're going to face things that you never thought you'd face. You're going to have valleys in life that you never think you're going to get out of. And so be ready, buckle up, And so how does that relate? Well, if you have an endurance mindset, you're going to be able to persevere through some of those really challenging things that life throws at us that we don't see coming. Often it's like, well, that's that family's problem, or that's that guy's problem. Thank goodness I'm never going to deal with that. And then next thing you know, the next decade or whatever, it lands right in your lap. So that's one area I would say, Greg, is that it's helped me to persevere through the ups and downs of life with this mindset of like, no, this is, life is the ultra marathon, right? And there's going to be times where you feel great, and there's going to be times when you feel horrible and you want to just quit. But you don't. You keep going. So it's helped me that way.
I love the fact that you brought up, talking to younger audience, talking to high school students. It's just bringing me back to sort of my days and what I would hear as a young adult versus what we think we're saying, right? So I'd love for you to unpack that a little bit more. Like, how does that audience, how does the high school student respond to that conversation when you're having that with them?
Well, it's kind of hard if you haven't run into the wall at 100 miles an hour yet. It's kind of hard to really get them to appreciate it. But I can tell some stories, and I can share some challenges that I have faced that seem to open the door a little bit to their understanding a little bit more. I think one of the challenges is that high school, college, young adults are so idealistic. I remember back to my late teens and my early 20s, mid 20s. It's like, I know how life's going to turn out, marriage, kids, all this stuff. It's going to be great. I'm going to have rock star kids. And I love my kids. They're great. But, you have these idealistic thoughts and plans. And then, there's a 90-degree turn in life where if you're not careful, you go right off the cliff. So I like challenging them. I like letting them know a little bit of what's going to happen, but also to encourage them a lot, like, look, wherever your roots are, get them down deep, because when the storm blows, you're going to need some deep roots to hold you steady in life. And as a former pastor of a lot of years, I bring in, of course, spiritual principles there that help them quite often, I think. Yeah.
Could you expand on the deep? How can we deepen our roots, right? Or that high school student, like, go one step further with that, because I think you're really onto something important.
Well, I would say this, well, it's like in an Ironman, right? A good coach will tell the athlete, look, you're going to have probably 3 things go wrong in this race.
Hopefully,
So just hopefully only 3. So just be ready for it. And when the first one happens, don't freak out. Just check the box. All right, that's number 1. And then you keep going. I had a friend who was doing Ironman Germany, and the race had just started. The bike portion had just started. He had his 2 nutrition bottles on the back of his seat, all set up, ready to go. They were dialed in for about 4 hours worth, 2 hours each. And he hit a bump, and the entire rack broke off. What are you going to do? Another guy made the mistake of he made the mistake of, don't do anything new on race day. Well, his wife had made these little squares of peanut butter and strawberry uh, peanut butter sandwiches, just these little squares in a little container there. So he was going to munch on those. Well, he didn't realize he was allergic to strawberry jam. So at about 60 miles, his face starts swelling up, his lips start swelling up. Anyway, so stuff goes sideways. Stuff goes sideways in life. And so in terms of work ethic, in terms of how are you going to handle it when things go bad? Because they will. And maybe things have already gone bad. A lot of kids today, as you know, Greg, they face tough stuff. A divorce of parents, maybe the death of a loved one, a death of a schoolmate. My daughter, man, when she was coming through junior high school, I don't know, she lost like 4 or 5 kids in her class. Just a tragic stuff. And so I think to be there and help them through those things is a good way to help their roots go down. Planting the expectations that life is wonderful. It can be wonderful, but it's going to be really hard at times. And so what are you rooted in? What are you rooted in? Maybe it's family, maybe it's faith, maybe it's friendship. But it's hard because they don't know. They haven't experienced some of the really hard things. But I think being there for them, I love working with the younger people and just encouraging them, seeing the talents and abilities that they have and calling those out, letting them know, look, you are this and this and this. I was at a wedding the other day, sitting next to a college basketball player that I just met. He was a friend of the bride. We were friends of the groom. I said, what do you do? And he goes, well, I do this now, and I'm playing college ball, and super engaging, great personal skills. And I said, well, what do you want to do when you get out of college? He said, I think I want to do real estate. I said, let me tell you something. You are going to be great at real estate. He said, really? I said, yeah. You know how I know? How? I said, well, number one, you know how to engage with people older than you because I'm older than you, and you're doing an amazing job. For interpersonal skills, you've got it. That can't be taught, really. You've got it. And then huge background in business, loves business. I said, that's big number 2. And I forget what my number 3 was. But it was great. I felt like in 8 minutes after the wedding, I took that kid and hopefully brought him to a different level. Not huge, but a little higher level. My wife was sitting next to me. She did real estate for 10 years in Phoenix. So she jumps in. I said, hey, meet so-and-so. Oh, you're going to be great. I think, okay, and here's an example why, Greg. Why I think that's so important. So I'm coming up through school. In the early days when I was little, there were no little leagues. Nobody had I'm so old, there was no little league invented yet, right? Or if it was invented, I couldn't play because of schedule and things. So I go out for basketball in 8th grade and I get cut. From, you know how it is, you try out 2 days after school. Then the next day you go and look at the coach's office door where he has the 12 names listed. I went up and down that list 10 times and my name wasn't there even after the 3rd time. So I go out for wrestling that winter. They used me in one match only, one meet, and I lost 12-0. All right. 9th grade, I make the football team, and because they kept 80 guys, I was a 3rd string running back, and I got in about 5 plays the entire season. I used to roll around during warm-ups just to try to get some grass stains on my white football pants. Then basketball in 9th grade. I tried out, I made the team. I'd worked hard that summer, made the team. And Greg, my total season scoring, my total scoring accumulation was 1. I made 1 free throw the entire season, right? And so I work hard again the next summer. And in 10th grade, I'm playing JV basketball for my high school. And for some reason, I don't know why, it's a mystery to me. The referee handed me the ball to throw it inbounds and start the play, which is normal. And I took off dribbling inbounds from out of bounds. This is JV high school. And, there's motions for every, turnover. And there's no motion for dribbling inbounds. He just blew his whistle and yelled at me. You can't do that. So I say all that just to say that I didn't have somebody that was like speaking into me, like Link. Well, let me one more quick one. I'm in a little NAIA college in Kentucky, and I never run in my life. My senior year, I go out for track because they only had like 5 guys out for track. They couldn't get anybody. It's such a small school. So about a 3rd meet, we go to Eastern Kentucky University. Massive school, massive invitational. There are probably 10 or 12 schools there. The longest race they had was the 2 mile. So it was a night meet. The gun goes off and all these guys take off. I'm like, man, they're really fast. So I'm trying to keep up with them. And pretty soon they get way ahead of me. And then pretty soon they get behind me. And I'm like, oh no. And I'm on my 7th lap and they come flying by me on their 8th and they lap me in eight laps. So they cross the line. They're done. I'm in last place. I still have about a lap and a quarter to go. And I was very tempted to just quit and just go, you know what? Nobody, who cares? 7 laps instead of 8. I'm in last place. So I ran the last lap and a quarter all by myself. I mean, they're turning off the lights in the stadium. Cars are pulling away. So I had this mindset formed in me, Greg, growing up that like, you know, you really like sports, but you're not very good. So I had this identity embedded in me because of those experiences. And so one of the things that surprised me about the endurance mindset is that I had to go through this massive identification, self-awareness shift from being not very good to a 3-time national champion in triathlon. I mean, that's a pretty drastic shift. But anyway, all that just to say, I didn't have anybody speaking into my life saying, okay, so I come off the track, I've been lapped. What if somebody had said to me, Link, someday you're going to be 3-time national champion in triathlon? I would have looked at them and said, what are you smoking? You are out of your head. I wouldn't have believed it.
100%.
So I'm chatting too much here.
No, you're doing great. You brought up something always goes wrong on race day, or 3 things are going to go wrong. And I was just in Ironman Canada a few weeks ago. And I'm coming out of the water, jump on the bike, feeling pretty good. The road's a little bit bumpy, to your point in your story. And somebody passes me and goes, you dropped something. And so I look down, I check my nutrition, everything's good, check my watch, everything. And I look down again and my bike computer's gone. And now I'm like mile 4 or 5 out of a 112 ride. And so I had that dilemma of, do I fight through the rest of the day with no computer? And I've been working with my coach on wattage and cadence and heart rate and blah, blah, blah. Or do I turn around? So I turned around and went upstream and pissed a lot of racers off. But then I had to run across, grab my computer and give it a go. So to your point,
you found it though.
Yeah, I did find it.
Oh gosh.
It was, anyway, Link, I'd love to, how did you discover triathlon? Like you just told this story about your youth and being sort of the back of the packer. Now you're not, right? You're age group winner, you know, world champion, et cetera, et cetera. Like, when did that light bulb come on of like, hey, I might not be able to shoot more than one basketball hoop, but I could probably get a swim bike run in before anybody else.
Well, so after college, I kept running. You know, I started doing 5Ks and 10Ks. And then I did my first half marathon. Then I did my wife's from Chattanooga, did the first Chattanooga marathon and went 3:14, not even knowing what I was doing, and got second in my age group. I'm like, hey, maybe there's something to this endurance thing. But every year, and I'm probably a lot of guys my age would say the same thing. I started watching the Hawaiian Ironman on NBC, or maybe it was ABC way back in the day. And I would watch that and I would think, those people are either the most amazing people on the planet, or they have lost their minds. I don't know which, maybe it's both, but I would watch it every year and I was intrigued by it. And so I finally met an actual triathlete. It was like, you're an actual triathlete? I've never met one before. Tell me about this. We went to lunch and he told me about the sport. So this was about 1994. And so I found a race down in Kansas City. We're in Omaha. So we drove down. I kind of teased my wife. It was our anniversary weekend. I said, hey, let's go to Kansas City just to get away. And Friday night we can go out to dinner, and Saturday we can shop around and have dinner Saturday night. And you can sleep in on Sunday and I'm going to do a triathlon. She said, wait, what was that Sunday thing? So anyway, went to Kansas City, Lee Summit on the southeast corner of town. And I didn't know how to swim other than side stroke. So I didn't wear goggles. We're all waist deep in water. And this old guy next to me looks at me and he goes, don't you wear goggles? And I was like, nah. He didn't know I was going to keep my head out of the water for 1,000 yards and side stroke. So I side stroked 1,000 yards ran up to the bikes with 3 elderly women, and there were like 3 bikes left. And so I had my old college 10 speed. But then when it came to the run, I passed a whole bunch of people. So I set a goal to come back the next year, and I had like 4 goals. Don't get chicked. Sorry. Um, hit a certain time, get on the podium for my age group and whatever else. And I got all of them. I made all of them. And at that point I was hooked. So then it's like, okay, I did a sprint, I did an Olympic. I wonder if I could do a half. Can I do a full? And you know how it goes.
That
You know that whatever it is, or that challenge, the next challenge, right? But then I found out after doing several Ironmans that I was actually more of a sprinter, a short course guy. And as you know, like just like track, you find out if you're a sprinter, a middle distance, or a distance guy. Same with triathlon. Like the sprint and the Ironman are like 2 different sports almost. So yeah, became a short course specialist. It hurts more, but shorter than a Ironman. But anyway, yeah. So I just kept racing, and then it went from can I do it to can I be competitive, and then place in your age group, and then win the age group, and then get maybe top 10 overall in like a regional race, not a massive one, but a regional race. And I got my first USA regional championship when we lived in Phoenix, and then went on to get 3 more, well, 2 in triathlon and 1 in duathlon. Interesting thing, I started all this craziness at about mid-30s, and I improved for 20 years, Greg. I got faster for 20 years. My fastest ever triathlon was at USAT Nationals in Lake Champlain, Burlington, Vermont, when I was 55.
What's the secret there?
Well, you know well, and we all know that endurance sports is all about cardio efficiency, muscle memory, cardio efficiency, and all that kind of stuff. And since I had a running background, but no swimming and no biking, I had a lot of work to do, and I could continue to improve in those for, actually, it was probably 18 years that I kept improving. So yeah, my heart got more efficient. Max VO2 max kept going up. And also then there's a natural gift, right? I mean, if you're going to do them, you can do them and have fun, and that's awesome. But if you're going to really try to be competitive at an age group elite level, you got to have some talent. And so my dad always had a super low resting heart rate. Naturally, my mom held the school scoring record in basketball in college. So I got some good genes, and I know those, when you get those developed, that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm improving as well. Over the last 10 years of doing long distance, I've gotten faster, and I'm finding it's because I'm much more sort of intentional on the training. Like I'm focusing on one of the disciplines. So this year, I'm 100% focused on cycling. Like the run's going to be the run and the swim's going to be the swim. But if I can drop time and improve my VO2 and get my wattages up, and then to your point, over the next 10 years, let's hope we keep chipping away at that. So I was hoping you had some secret sauce that you could send my way to keep it going.
Well, consistency is king, right? And so consistency, focus, getting smarter. Every race, I tell younger guys, look, every race you do, you're going to learn something. And you get this cumulative effect that takes place in terms of your skill, your know-how, your confidence, which was huge for me, because the first time I went to Worlds, it was in Hamburg, Germany. And there I am, I'm on the starting line on this dock, and I'm looking at like 50 to my right. There's 50 of the fastest guys in the world my age. And I look to my left, and there's another 50 guys, the fastest in the world. And they all have on their, their team uniforms from their countries. And I just thought, what am I doing here? What am I doing? And I had all these flashbacks to the story I told you about growing up and all the stupid things I did and how I got cut and scored 1 point and all. And I felt immediately intimidated. I mean, I was like, I don't know what's going on here. Well, I'd set a goal to get 20th in the world, and I got that exactly. I got 20th. I outsprinted a dude from Great Britain to get 20th. So then the next time I went, it was Australia, and I'm like, okay, let's go for top 10. I got 8th. And so each one of those races, confidence just skyrocketed, right? And I didn't get cocky. I got confident. So like by the third Worlds, I'm standing there with these 100 guys. I'm going, all right, boys, let's see what you got. I worked hard. You worked hard. Let's throw this thing down and see where we all end up.
That's
So it
awesome.
wasn't cocky, but it was just like, okay, boys, bring it.
That's awesome. Blake, I'd like to know, what are you doing now? I know you do some coaching, some speaking. Give us a sense, give the audience a sense of what you're up to these days.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm running a nonprofit here in Omaha called Step Up to Life. My father actually started it a number of years ago. And it's kind of a leadership training organization for faith-based organizations. So we produce materials and then we train all around the world, actually, all kinds of everything from like inner city stuff to drug rehab people, um, NGOs in different countries around the world that are working in humanitarian devices, churches, missions, all kinds of stuff like that. So it's a great job. I've been to like 42 nations.
Mm.
So it's a fun job that way. And I've also had a chance to race when I'm traveling. Sometimes I try to tuck that in. So I've raced in Canada. I did Ironman Canada back in '98.
Okay.
Um, but I've raced in Cuba, Germany, Australia twice, England, US, Canada. So yeah. So that's what I'm doing. I'm doing mostly leadership training with these faith-based organizations.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And then you've published a couple books. When did that first book come out? I mean, did you always? So I've wrote a book many many years ago, and they always say you've got one in you somewhere. I'm
Yeah.
curious, when did you get your inspiration? How did it come out of your fingers and ultimately
Right.
get to the
Oh
shelves?
gosh. Well, to give it context, my hair was all black when that first book came out. So that'll tell you something. In our church, we were doing a lot of short-term mission trips where we would get these teams together and then we'd send them out to help NGOs and all kinds of different stuff going on around the world. So we spun that up to where we were doing like 12 teams a year out of our one church. So other churches started going, hey, how do you do that? So I gathered up our materials and what we did, and I would make copies and just mail it to them. And then I thought I should probably just put this in a book.
Hmm.
So I did. So I just put it in a book, and that was the first one. And it was one of those old fashioned things where I just sat down at my typewriter and like chapter one. Um, okay, it was terrible. It was terrible. So the second book I wrote, I actually was speaking at a Fellowship of Christian Athletes event, and the FCA publisher came up to me afterwards and he said, "Hey, if you'll take those and turn those into written form, I'll put them together and publish a book for you. See you at the finish. Eight principles of spiritual endurance." So I tell a lot of my stories from endurance racing, from Ironman, ultra marathons, etc., and bring them over kind of in the spiritual dimension to help encourage people to keep going there.
Can you expand
Yeah.
on what you mean by spiritual endurance?
Yeah. Well, the Apostle Paul, it's not something I came up with. The Apostle Paul actually used this a number of times. He talked about boxing and running, and there was a third sport. I can't remember what it was, but so yeah, running the race. The life is like a race. And that's what Paul was saying.
Hmm.
He said, in a race, everybody runs, but only one wins the prize. So run as to win it. And so I can break that down with people and say, well, what does it look like to run a spiritual race so that in the end you win? And then I take 8 principles of stuff that I've learned, like, for example, friction. We're all blisters. We were all probably familiar at one point or another with blisters in endurance racing. So what is that a result of? That's a result of friction. So if you want to finish well spiritually, you gotta have right relationships toward other people. You can't let bitterness and anger and unforgiveness creep in. It's like cancer in your heart, and it's also like friction. And a bad blister can take you out of the race,
Hmm.
just like bad relationships, if you don't handle those right, can take you out of the spiritual race. So that's like just one example of the 8 that I kind of break down in the book. And then
Super.
at the end of every chapter, I tell just a little bit of the story of my Hawaiian Ironman. So you got to read it all the way to the end to see if I finish or not.
Is there a tidbit you could share for your Ironman Hawaii story?
Yeah, it was the longest day of my life. I didn't know what I was doing. I had been doing triathlons just for like 3 years. And I got in. That's a whole nother story. But I got in, and I honestly didn't know. I hopped on my bike after the swim, and I had don't laugh. I had taped a peanut butter and jelly sandwich to my aero bars because I was so afraid that I was going to bonk on the bike. So in the first 5 miles, I wolfed that whole thing down, and it sat right here for about 50 miles. I did, and the winds that year, Greg, they're always bad, but sometimes they're not very bad. The year I did it was one of the worst in the history of the race. I looked out at the ocean going up to the Queen K Highway, and there was nothing but white. It was white caps everywhere. And the palm trees that should be like this were parallel to the ground,
Wow.
blowing like this, and we're going this way. There were times I was quite sure I wasn't going to make the bike cut off. And I'm an okay cyclist, but it was brutal. 30 miles an hour sustained most of the day, with gusts to 40 and 50. 3 people literally were blown off their bike sideways and out of the race. I'm coming down from Javi, hanging on. No, forget aero bars. I'm hanging on for dear life as it comes and it curves down, and the tailwind quickly turns into a side wind. I was scared to death. Anyway, and this is when Peter Reed won in 98. I'm cycling back into town, and I'm hearing them announce Peter Reed winning.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, Link, you're way behind. Not that I was going to win. And then we had to bike another 8 miles. It was when the aid stations, the transition 2 was down 8 miles down the road. I had 8 more miles to bike and then a marathon. And it was a long day at the office. I finished with glow sticks, if that tells you anything. The sun had gone down.
That's how I normally finish, but I have not suffered Kona yet. It's on the bucket list, and I'm working on it for sure.
Good. Yeah.
Rewinding back to what we originally started talking about with the endurance mindset, can you share a story of how you've used, the principles that you've developed through your training and through your endurance into other parts of your life?
Yeah. I would, if there were 2 contrasting words for the first 20 years of my life, and then slowly but surely the next 48, the first 20 would just be what I mentioned, intimidation, absolute intimidation in various settings, a lot of insecurity. If I was in a room that had professional people or doctors, attorneys, whatever, everybody, you always kind of measure, like, where am I? How do I stack up to these other people? Or with great athletes or anything like that. I always just felt intimidated, like I don't stack up with these guys. And so just, I'd shy away to a corner maybe. With triathlon and with the endurance mindset, as it continued to grow, as I found more and more success, and success breeds success, and success breeds confidence, the intimidation factor was replaced with a confidence factor. So that whatever setting I'm in, whether it has to do with my work or a sports setting or anything like that, I carry with me a confidence, a self-confidence, not cocky. There's a big difference. There's a big difference, because we all know cocky people that we don't even want to hang around because all they can do is talk about themselves. But just a confidence in life that whatever area of life I'm in, whatever room I'm in, whoever I'm with, there's a self-assurance that comes from, look, I've done some hard things in life, and I've, by God's grace, I've got some wonderful accomplishments and a pretty good bio that'll probably stack up pretty much against anybody's. And again, confidence, not cockiness. And so that's kind of that's real general, in fact. But yeah, I can be in a room with doctors and attorneys. I'm like, okay, boys, what do you got?
It's amazing that you say that, because it's spot on, right? It's a real advertisement, I think, for why we do these endurance events. And it could be a triathlon, it could be an Ultraman, it could be hiking across XYZ, or
Right.
it does put yourself into a position of confidence, right? You always tear yourself down and then you build yourself back up. But you do walk into a room or join a group of people, and you've been through the hard stuff. You've been through a difficult thing. You've done the training when no one's
Yeah,
watching. And I feel
exactly.
that really makes a difference. And so if I was gonna preach to our audience about doing an endurance events or getting into this, that's the reason we should be doing this, is so that we can be building our own self-confidence so that we can conquer other
Yes.
things in life.
Exactly. I mean, the carryover is amazing into all areas of life. And I think too, if somebody's not an endurance athlete, maybe music was their thing. Maybe they stunk growing. Okay, so trumpet, right? I played the trumpet in ninth, eighth, ninth, seventh grade, and I was fourth chair. And back then, it's like first chair. He's the best trumpeter, and he's got this beautiful gold trumpet. I had my grandfather's silver cornet. It wasn't even a real trumpet, and I'm fourth chair. So that goes into the whole thing. The musicals in high school. I never had a lead part. I never had a solo. I was all part of the city crowd that you'd had to have on stage for the musical. Academics, I was like a B minus C plus student. I was not the academic dude. Um, and so yeah, I'm so thankful for the confidence that's been built through all this. But if somebody wants to learn a language, a new foreign language,
Mhm.
or they want to learn to play the piano or whatever it is, they might discover that they've got a gift in them that they'd had no clue. I discovered I had a gift. I mean, I discovered it in my 30s and it peaked in my 50s, and I'm still having fun with it. I just want, so you know how it is. If you find a small enough race, you can win. So there's a little community outside of Omaha that I saw a sign driving by that they were going to have a super sprint try. And I'm like, hey, it's the last race of the year. I'm going to jump in. So at 68, I beat 50 people on Huffy bikes from Kmart, but that's okay, right? It's okay. I'm still having fun with this thing. And yeah, I plan on doing it for a long time, as long as the old body holds up, which is a
Yeah.
challenge, of course, the older you get. How old are you, Greg?
52.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Well,
So
you got a lot of years to get to Kona. So that's
yeah,
good.
my fingers are crossed. I'm almost at the legacy mark. I think it's 12 and I'm at 10. Um, I also fundraise for the Ironman Foundation. So I'm hoping somehow by my good graces, somebody finds me a spot. But either
Yeah.
way, we'll get there. I just want to be there for the party. And my kids want to go because they want to go to Hawaii.
Of course. Of course. Yeah. Well, a great experience for sure. Yeah.
Link, audience member wants to get in touch with you. What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Well, yeah, I got a website. It's just lincolnmurdoch.com. And Murdoch's with an H on the end, not a K. Or my work is Lincoln at stepuptolife.com. Step Up to Life is the nonprofit that I lead. So yeah, those are both good ways.
Awesome. And we'll include those links in the show notes. Link, it's been a great conversation today. I loved how we sort of went in and out of the endurance mindset and really ultimately ended up at the end of the conversation talking about, discipline and self-confidence and how this sport has changed our lives from being,
Yeah.
the kid that wants to hide in the corner to somebody who wants to stand in front of the room. So audience members, if you got some value out of today's conversation, please subscribe, please like the
Mm.
show. Let's spread this episode out to the world and get Link's message to everybody. Welcome to the Chief Endurance Officer Podcast. I'm your host, Greg McDonough. Each week, we hear real-time stories from athletes and CEOs on how to maximize performance through an endurance mindset. Let's get started.